Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on suboccipital triangle. Now, before we go ahead with this session on suboccipital triangle, we have to understand because this session is kind of common with back of the neck, which we have studied in the upper limb. But here now, in the upper limb, we only studied the layer 1 and maybe the layer 2 of the back of the neck. In the layer 1, when we see the muscles on the back of the neck, in the layer 1 muscle are trapezius, then latissimus dorsi. Along, so these are the two main muscles, trapezius and latissimus dorsi in layer 1. What are the muscles in layer 2? In layer 2 are the muscles which we saw after dissecting trapezius. We saw there are some muscles in the while when we dissected the upper limb and the shoulder girdle, and below the trapezius we had seen some muscles and their names were levator, right, levator scapulae, then rhomboids, both major and minor. And last session we had, when we studied the posterior triangle, we had seen that there is a muscle group splenius, the splenius capitis to be specific. Now there are now few muscles which you may not see, but you will because they are very small, very deep inside. You have heard of serratus anterior. Now there is another muscle called as serratus posterior. But this serratus posterior has two parts: serratus posterior superior and serratus posterior inferior. So that lies in the layer. So layer 1 is trapezius and latissimus dorsi, and layer 2 is levator scapulae, splenius, rhomboids, both major and minor. Rhomboid major and minor. Serratus posterior superior, serratus posterior inferior. Now let us talk about layer 3. The layer 3 will have mainly in the lower part this muscle called as erector spinae. As the name suggests, erector spinae. It keeps the spine erect. If you study the posterior surface of the sacrum, there on the either side of the spine, you will find U-shaped attachment of this muscle. U-shaped attachment of this muscle, erector spine. So it is attached to the dorsal surface of the sacrum. From there it arises. And it has many components like iliocostalis, then longismus, then spinalis. So these are the various names of the group. So longismus again will be divided into longismus thoracis, longismus cervicis, longismus capitis. So in the cervical region, longismus cervicis, longismus thoracis. In the thoracic region, longismus capitis, which is attached to the skull. Okay. So then there are iliocostalis group. So iliocostalis, longismus, spinalis, they all come under erector spinae. Along with erector spinae, in the group 3 is semispinalis. Is semispinal. So erector spinae has its own spinalis group, but this is semispinalis. Okay. So layer 3 has erector spinae, which is attached to the dorsal surface of the sacrum. So also called as sacrospinalis. Sacrospinalis. Now coming to layer 4. Layer 4 is the deepest layer and it has muscles of the name. It has muscles of the name multifidus. Multifidus. Then rotators. Interspinalis. Transverse. Intertransversi. Okay. And the muscles which we are going to study, the suboccipital muscle. Suboccipital muscle. So today we are going to study the suboccipital triangle, which is formed by the suboccipital muscles. So they will be forming the boundary of the triangle. The semispinalis will be forming the medial part of the roof. The splenius and the longissimus, they will be forming the lateral part of the roof of the today's triangle. So again, I'll repeat, today's topic is suboccipital triangle, and before we start reach up to the suboccipital triangle, which muscles of the suboccipital forming the suboccipital triangle are lying in the layer 4, the deepest layer of the on the back of the neck. The layer 1 muscles are trapezius and latissimus dorsi. Layer 2 is the muscles which are below trapezius. That is rhomboids, serratus posterior, superior, posterior, inferior, rhomboid major, minor, levator, scapula, and splenius. Then layer 4 is erector spinae group or sacrospinalis attached to the sacrum. Iliocostalis, longissimus, and spinalis are the parts of the erector spinae. They are further divided into longissimus, thoracis, cervicis, capitis. And then there is semispinalis in layer 2. Only semispinalis, splenius, longissimus, they form the roof of the suboccipital triangle. Okay. Now coming to the layer 4. Layer 4 has this suboccipital muscles. Then there are multifidus, rotator, interspinalis, which interspinalis connecting one spine to the other spine of the vertebra. Intertransversi connecting transverse process of one muscle to the other. Okay. So this is about the 4 layers, so which will come across while dissecting, the back. Okay. Now let us go and check out the suboccipital triangle and what structures form the roof of the suboccipital triangle. The roof of the suboccipital triangle will be formed by skin firstly, then it will have superficial fascia. Whenever I teach any triangle or any uh, such fossa, first thing we have to remember is whenever we write skin, superficial fascia, so we have to write superficial fascia containing. So here superficial fascia will contain occipital nerve, means greater occipital nerve, then lesser occipital nerve. Okay, we have heard of lesser occipital nerve, then third occipital nerve. These all will be there. Also, there will be occipital artery. This occipital artery is a branch of external carotid artery. Is a branch of external carotid artery. Okay, and there will be occipital vein also. Then there will be the fibers of trapezius. Okay, there will be the fibers of trapezius, and these fibers of trapezius. Then there will be sternocleidomastoid. Okay, so trapezius, sternocleidomastoid, trapezius, sternocleidomastoid. These are the muscles which will be lying over the trunk. Okay, and then mainly forming the roof on the medial side. The roof mainly formed on the medial side is by the semispinalis capitis. Semispinalis capitis, and on the lateral side, the roof is formed by the longismus capitis. Longismus capitis, the longismus capitis, and occasionally by splenius capitis. So whenever you are asked these are the structures covering the roof, but whenever you are asked about the structures forming the roof, you have to write semispinalis capitis muscle, medially and laterally longismus capitis and splenius capitis. Okay, with that uh, brief background about brief background about the suboccipital region, the triangle, what are the structures forming the roof. Now let us see what are the structures forming the boundary. Now you are looking at the posterior aspect of the body, and this is the posterior tubercle of the atlas, and this below the posterior tubercle of the atlas is the spine of the axis, is the spine of the axis. Okay, is the spine of the axis. So this is atlas, that is C1 vertebra, and which doesn't have a spine, it just has a posterior tubercle. And this is spine of axis, that is C2 vertebra. Okay, so this is atlas and this is axis. Now atlas, all of you know, will have a posterior arch, right? It will have a posterior arch. Atlas will have a posterior arch, and then there will be the transverse process of the atlas. Here will be the transverse process of the atlas. Okay. So this is the posterior arch of the atlas. So this way the atlas will have a posterior arch, then there will be a lateral mass, and but I am not drawing everything over here. Okay. Now there is one muscle which takes origin from the posterior tubercle of the atlas, and the name of this muscle, is rectus capitis, posterior minor. Okay, so this muscle is rectus capitis posterior minor. Rectus capitis posterior minor. And then there is one muscle which is arising from the C2, which is arising from C2. And this muscle which is arising from C2 is, this is also going upwards and getting attached to the skull, okay, near the nuchal lines. And one which is arising from C2, that is also going upwards, okay, that is also going upwards. That is also going upwards, okay. And this muscle will be called as rectus capitis posterior major. So there is rectus capitis posterior minor, which is arising from the tubercle of C1 vertebra. And then there is rectus capitis posterior minor, major, which is attached to C2, the, the axis vertebra, the spine of the axis vertebra. Okay. And this gets attached to the inferior nuchal line, below the inferior nuchal line. While this gets attached again to the medial part below the inferior nuchal line. So basically both of them are getting attached to the part below the inferior nuchal line, but this is getting attached to the medial part below the inferior nuchal line, and this is getting attached to the lateral part below the inferior nuchal line. Okay. Now there is one more muscle. Okay, there is one more muscle, and that arises from axis. That muscle arises from the spine of the axis. This is the spine of the axis, and gets attached to the transverse process of the atlas. Spine of the axis to the transverse process of the atlas. And this muscle is called as inferior oblique capitis. Inferior oblique capitis. Inferior oblique capitis. And then there is one muscle which arises from the transverse process of atlas, and it gets attached again between the nuchal lines, and this is called as superior oblique capitis. So these are the four suboccipital muscles. The rectus capitis posterior major arising from the spine of C2, rectus capitis posterior minor arising from the posterior tubercle of C1, inferior oblique running from spine of C2 to transverse process of C1. Okay, this is transverse process of C1, transverse process. Okay, and superior oblique capitis running from the transverse process, tip of the transverse process of C1 between the nucleus. So this is the triangle. This is the triangle, the suboccipital triangle, roof of which is formed medially by semispinalis capitis, laterally by longissimus capitis, and splenius capitis. Now let us see what are the structures forming the floor. Now before that, I want you to understand a sagittal section. If this is the skull like this, and below the skull, here is the foramen magnum. Here is the foramen magnum. So this is foramen magnum. And here is the posterior arch of atlas, and here is the anterior arch of atlas. So running from the posterior arch of atlas to the skull is posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. And here, running from the anterior arch of the atlas, so this is the anterior arch, this is the posterior, is anterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Anterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Anterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Okay. So that means if I approach, if the triangle is somewhere here, so the floor of the triangle will be formed by posterior arch of the atlas and posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Posterior arch of the atlas and posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. So now let us write down the boundaries of the triangle, and the floor. So the posterior atlanto-occipital membrane will be running like this. I'll draw this membrane. This is posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Okay, so running to the back of the skull. So now let us write down the boundaries of the suboccipital triangle. The boundaries of the suboccipital triangle are superomedially. It is formed by rectus capitis posterior major and rectus capitis posterior minor. Superolaterally, it is formed by superior oblique muscle. And inferiorly, it is formed by inferior oblique muscle. Inferiorly formed by inferior oblique muscle. Roof we have already seen. Now we have studied the boundaries. Now let us talk about the floor. The floor of the suboccipital triangle is formed by posterior arch of atlas. Posterior arch of atlas, you can see here, because here will be the triangle. We will be approaching from the posterior aspect and will be coming across these two structures. This view here is anterior, here is posterior, this is superior, this is inferior. Okay. So now here I am seeing the arch of the atlas. From here the membrane will be going to the, these are all nuchal lines over here, inferior nuchal line and superior nuchal line. So this is all occipital bone. So posterior arch of the atlas and posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Okay, so these are the structures forming the floor. Posterior arch of the atlas and posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. Now, what are the contents? What are the contents? What are the contents of this triangle? Contents of this triangle are only three. There are only three contents in this triangle. Main three contents. And I'll show you. I'll just firstly enumerate the contents of the triangle. The main content of this triangle is third part of vertebral artery. Third part of vertebral artery. The next content of this triangle is dorsal ramus of C1 nerve, the suboccipital nerve, also called as suboccipital nerve. And the suboccipital plexus of Waits. Suboccipital plexus of Waits. Suboccipital plexus of Waits. So now I am showing you how are the structures located and where they are located. The third part of the third part of the vertebral artery is here. The third part of vertebral artery is here, and then it will pass like this, and then it will enter. Then it will pass below it. I'm not making it dark, and then it will enter through foramen magnum. So this another side there will be third part, and both the third part vertebral artery will enter the foramen magnum, and eventually in the upper part, okay, this they will enter the foramen magnum. The other side there will be another vertebral artery. They will enter foramen magnum, and in front of the so this artery will continue like this, enter through the foramen magnum, which will be somewhere here, and they will unite in front of the pons, to form basilar artery. The basilar artery will be formed here like this. Okay. So third part will be here, and now this will be called as the fourth part. Where is the first and second part? I will conduct a separate session to tell you more about the vertebral artery. So currently we have listed one content, that is the third part. The first part is from the origin, from its subclavian to the vertebral column. Second part lies in the foramen transversorium, and from the foramen transversorium of the second, it comes here and then takes a turn going posterior to the lateral mass and enters the suboccipital triangle. The third part lies in the suboccipital triangle. Fourth part is the intracranial part, which both sides unite to form basilar artery. So this is the first content. Now let us see the second content. Second content is dorsal ramus of C1, which is also called as suboccipital nerve. And this suboccipital nerve will supply all these four muscles. So this is dorsal ramus of C1. Dorsal ramus of C1. This is vertebral artery. Okay, the third part of vertebral. And then there is suboccipital plexus of veins. Also running from here to here, going like this in the roof. In the roof is greater occipital nerve. Now, something you should know about the greater occipital nerve, and that is that this greater occipital nerve, which is just a dorsal ramus of C2. So this is C2. This was C1 now. Now this is dorsal ramus of C2, which is the greater occipital nerve, which is the thickest cutaneous nerve in the body. So this can be your MCQ. The greater occipital nerve is the thickest cutaneous nerve in the body. It is the dorsal ramus of C2. So what is dorsal ramus of C1? Dorsal ramus of C1 is suboccipital nerve, which is supplying these four muscles which are forming the suboccipital triangle boundaries, while dorsal ramus of C2. Third occipital nerve is dorsal ramus of C3. Okay, dorsal ramus of C3, not seen so much. Okay, and other nerves, the lesser occipital you have already studied, is a branch of the cervical plexus. Okay, the suboccipital plexus of veins will be formed by the occipital vein and the internal vertebral plexus. It will be continuous with the vertebral plexus of veins. Okay, nothing so much significant about it, but one more thing which you need to study, lying in the roof and going like this, is occipital artery. I didn't draw it before because I didn't want to mess up with the diagram, but lying in the roof is, we said, skin, superficial fascia containing occipital artery and the greater occipital nerve, which is C2. Third occipital is C3. Okay. Now, what is the applied anatomy? What is the applied anatomy of this triangle? The applied anatomy of this triangle. The applied anatomy of this triangle is one, neck rigidity. So in case of meningitis, all these muscles, most of these muscles will cause extension of the neck. They will cause extension of the neck. They are postural muscles. While the oblique muscle, I'll talk about the actions of these muscles, but whenever these muscles go into spasm, it can cause neck rigidity. Second thing, cisternal neck rigidity, and this is typically seen in patients with meningitis. What happens is, in patients in meningitis, the nerve root which is coming this through the suboccipital space, it gets irritated due to the infection present in the subarachnoid space. In the meninges are infected. So as the nerve gets irritated, these muscles go into spasm, and this leads to neck rigidity. Okay. Then there is cisternal puncture. So what is cisternal puncture? In case lumbar puncture is failing and failing again and again, then doctors take a call to do the cisternal puncture. Uh, I'll talk about what is cisternal puncture and how it is done in details. But before that, let me tell you about the third uh, applied anatomy part of this triangle. This triangle is very important for the neurosurgeons, because it is from here the neurosurgeons approach the structures in the posterior cranial fossa, and they do the operations in the posterior cranial fossa. Okay, so three applied anatomies. One is the neck rigidity, which we see in meningitis cases, because what is going to happen, this nerve which is coming out will get irritated, and this can lead to spasm. So a person is not able to flex. We are not able to, flex the nerve. When we try to flex the neck of the person, we feel lot of resistance. Okay, forcefully, even if you try to flex the neck of these people, we feel people, a person with meningitis, patient with meningitis, we feel lot of resistance. Cisternal puncture. So now here is posterior atlanto-occipital membrane, and beyond that is foramen magnum, and here, of course, that will be little closer, foramen magnum. I have drawn it little far. So through this, I can go here and reach up to cisterna magna. Okay, cistern is the dilatation of subarachnoid space. So two dilatations are there around the medulla cisterna magna. So I reach there and I draw the cerebrospinal fluid. The risk is that structures passing through the medulla is also through the foramen magnum is also medulla. The spinal cord begins at C1 level, but till that point is medulla. So if my needle will touch the medulla, this can turn to be fatal. Okay. Now let me talk about the actions of these muscles. Okay, rectus capitis posterior major mainly will turn the face towards the same side. Okay, so when it contracts, and when both sides muscles will contract, they will extend the neck, because these are attached to the skull from behind. So when it contracts, it will extend the neck. Okay, rectus capitis posterior minor also extends the neck. Now the inferior oblique. So when it contracts, it will, this is the inferior oblique. So when it contracts, this will pull the atlas behind, and the face will turn like this. Okay, the atlas will turn, and on the top of the atlas is the skull. So okay, so the face will turn to the same side. That is the action of inferior oblique. Okay, while the superior oblique will laterally flex. It is going like this. So when it contracts, the skull will turn like this. It will laterally flex. Okay, it will also extend the head like the rectus capitis posterior. So that is all about the suboccipital triangle, the boundaries of which are formed by rectus capitis posterior major, rectus capitis posterior minor, superior oblique and inferior oblique. Floor is formed by the posterior arch of the atlas and posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. The contents are mainly the suboccipital plexus of vein, the third part of the vertebral artery, the dorsal ramus of C1. Okay, and then C2 dorsal ramus is greater occipital nerve, third occipital nerve. These are all seen in the roof along with the occipital artery. The applied anatomy is in meningitis. These muscles go into spasm. This causes neck rigidity. cisternal puncture, and for neurosurgeons, this is a very important triangle to approach the posterior cranial fossa. With that, we stop the session on the suboccipital triangle.